thinking when you go out to a story, try to focus it on the way there. So if you can describe the story in 3 words with a subject, an action, and a feeling, then that will also help you write and will help you focus. Instead of going out to a story like you've got a machine gun, you just have to get everything. Think of it like you only have 1 bullet, and that will really help you focus in your writing and your shooting.
Yeah, they asked me to jump in because we encounter this a lot, especially at my market size, which is 134, where a lot of you, of course, there's different routes to get to, but if you're looking at a starting market like mine, you'll encounter this. Sometimes it is about getting the job done and then reflecting at the end of the day on what you could have done better, or talking to your colleagues, how would you have put this story together? So I think having that time to reflect and review your work is certainly important. And I would echo what Michelle said, like look for the effect of the story rather than the event. Find the find the person to humanize and really share their story so that there's some emotion in it. So maybe your sources are limited, but you're really offering the opportunity for your viewer to connect with that person and know a little bit about them, because that's going to produce, as Molly talked about, that tangible result, something that maybe there's a call to action at the end of the story, or you feel like you really know the person and the issue that they're encountering, and that all comes through in your storytelling, and it kind of circles back to number 1, know your craft, know your writing, be a good writer, and reflect on your work.
I would only ask that, also know that perfect is the enemy of good. Jessica's main priority, you better make slot, first and foremost. So, I mean, it's great that you have, and you absolutely should know your craft and make it as best as possible. But your first priority is making slot on that newscast that day. So if you don't get that right, that's going to lead to a pretty short career, right? Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
Hello, good morning. My name is Gabriel Uline. I'm currently a student at Harold Washington College, also graduating in May, like many of us. I guess I picked up a couple of words or key phrases from each one of you guys. Victoria being adaptable, Sarah pretty much taking criticism well, Emily being a mediator, Margaret having range, John, grit, Doug, driven, Yubi, I would say, reach out of your...
Fired.
No, well, I would say for him, honestly, I would say for him it was just reach out of your own comfort zone. Jenny was education and also be bold. And then Michelle was be proactive. Is there any other advice that I may have missed as far as in terms of being I would say an ideal candidate to possibly being a productive employee in the media field? Is there anything else? Okay, all right. Yeah. Be yourself.
Have a good attitude. If you smile, it makes up for a lot of your weaknesses. If you can get along with others and play well, that goes a long way.
Yeah.
Okay.
I also, so many of us have jumped to different, cities and markets. Do your research. Before, I know someone over here had asked, about the city and kind of learning it and things once you get there. Do your research before, do your research on on your stations. Like before as you're applying, don't send out the same cover letter or resume. I literally had 15 different resumes and cover letters just for everyone that I was applying for. So really hone in, do the research on your city, on your station, who they're owned by. That's also gonna, help. So research.
I'd also like to say, be sure you follow up.
Yeah.
We got down to a third interview for 2 candidates, very equal for web developer. One of them called and thanked us, one of them didn't, and that was all it took. Mm-hmm. He didn't get the job. He didn't follow up maybe he followed up on interview 1 and 2, but that was the tiny difference in the end. Mm-hmm. Goes along with cover letters too.
That's a great point. And you're afraid to ask somebody, and this is the advice I always give when somebody's going for a job. If you were to ask somebody, what's the goal of the interview, right? And everybody would say, well, to get the job. No, the goal of the interview is to get the next interview. That's your single focus. When you're going in for that first interview, the goal is to get called back. You're not going to get the job in the first interview. You just want to be in that second cut. You want to make the cut. That should be your goal going into that interview. So that's something that's really important, because a lot of people come in with guns blazing and think they have to sell you right there in that first interview. You just got to sell yourself to the second one and then the third one. And then you worry about getting the job.
And in an interview, it's not just about answering the questions, it's about having good questions. Ask questions.
Right.
I would say don't be timid. Sorry, I loved John's comment about like no calls please means like we're gonna be probably impressed if you call. Every time I've boldly reached out to someone I don't know at all or asked a question that maybe made me or them feel uncomfortable, I shouldn't say every time. This is a lie. Sometimes it backfires like 2 out of 10 times, like he was saying. But I think that most times it will really benefit you. If you kind of feel like, ooh, I don't know if I should send the email to this person, or if you have that little feeling, ooh, this feels uncomfortable to me, it's probably something you should be doing.
My last thing, once you do get into like a job and you're starting out kind of like myself, I volunteer a lot. Like there's a lot of opportunities, and yeah, sometimes you're working late or waking up early, but I'm meeting so many people. I'm on one floor all day, so I don't get to see people in the newsroom or in creative. And then when we all come to volunteer, it is kind of nice to just learn more about the company you're actually working for and meet more people.
I think it's also about being global. You want to know your job description. You want to be able to get your job done, but be a self-starter. Start to think outside of that. How can you be a team player? How can you keep growing and keep learning? Because that's the way you get better. And as a manager, I don't always want to have to tell you what to do. I want to see you take some initiative to do more than maybe what the job asks sometimes, but you're doing it because it's right for the newsroom, it makes the overall quality and the team better.
All right, thank you for your comments.
And excuse me, I just want to say that good luck to you, because you sound like you probably would be a good interview, because just based on your takeaway notes from the panelists. So yeah. Yes, good.
It was a great question. Look how many answers you got. You know, I want to add one more quick thing to that, and then we'll get a question over here. The first time that I interviewed over at Channel 7, and I came in for an audition, I totally bombed that audition. I was like a deer in headlights. And they said, thanks, but no thanks. Mm-hmm. And I went home and I cried. And then I said, well, wait a minute. You know, who is my competition here? Me. I'm competing against myself. And I had a really good idea of what management was looking for at that point. And I went back and I made a whole nother tape. And I just went in there and said, hey, look, that probably wasn't my best work. But I guarantee you that give me a week or two and I can be as good as any of these reporters here. I am a quick study and I can do this. And that's when they called me back. So be persistent. Mm-hmm. Believe in yourself. Be confident. Okay, another question.
Hi.
Okay.
Well, that was quite a motivational speech over there. Thanks for that. My name is Alex Whitler, and I'm a junior at Loyola University Chicago. And I've really appreciated your nuggets of advice on what applicants have really stood out for. I loved how you told us, I don't want to hear that you want to do CBS this morning. I want to hear that you want to be in the A block. So I guess my question to you is, for those of us, we're here. We've had internships, we've had opportunities. So from there, at that point, not exactly what's next, but what are some of those other examples of those people who stood out in your mind? Those people where you said, wow, now that one, I want to call them back because of X. So what is X? Thanks.
Right. That will get a call back. Just your presentation. I would say your presentation right now with what you just said and how you addressed, Roz, and then went on into your question and everything. I mean, I would say presentation, will help you win. Yeah, absolutely.
I also would like to add, there is still a traditional element to interviewing. We have people that come in jeans. I wear jeans every day. This dress, feel weird. But, dress appropriately for an interview. I mean, I'm in the art department. I don't care about that. It's not important to me, other than presentation that day.
I think people tend to want to say what they think the interviewer wants to hear. I interviewed for APs, and I was so impressed that a young woman came in and, again, boldly kind of answered some of my questions in ways I didn't expect, didn't pair it back to me, like it was a little bit critical, but had good thoughtfulness about what we did, understood what we did, as if someone they knew was asking the question rather than, I want you to give me a job, so I'm going to say exactly what you want. So a boldness and a sense of self is what has stood out to me. Like, that person is saying it, and you know that they'll react that way in an interview with someone they're doing a story on. Like, if you can see that someone presents themselves in that way, I think that's impressive.
You can't fake being prepared. You actually have to be prepared. You can't fake being articulate. You have to be articulate. And those are skills that you can develop in so many different ways. If you came into an interview and expressed that you can talk goodly. Goodly.
My name is Harold Boone, and I'm from St. Louis, Missouri, and I'm currently at Kennedy King, Missouri in the media department, and right now I'm doing radio from shadowing from 10 to 2 on the Harley Rush Show. And my question is this, for each and every one of you, I want to know, when did you know what you actually doing? I know everybody took their different paths, but when did you know, when the light went on for you, that this was what you were supposed to be doing?
For me, it was when the light went on and it said, on the air. That really was the moment.
Yeah.
I knew when I was 5 with the construction paper. Serious.
I knew when I would do like mock. No, not when I got fired. Who says? God. I should have never said that. I just knew when I felt like I was just creating stories and creating like these magical moments for radio, like as a kid, you know, because it was something that I thought was fun, because I imagined it something being a hobby that I would do later on, and then it became, you know, a job. And yeah, when that on-air light comes on, that's when you're on. You know, I have interns all the time that say, "Oh, I know how to do that." Oh, yeah. They'll be watching the TV. Yeah, teleprompter, I got that. No, not until you actually get that. Yeah, so that's when it happens. Especially like in radio, you have all these, all this compression and everything on the microphones, and you know, when you finally hear yourself in the headphones. Like when I first heard myself in Miami, I was like, and I was at a college radio station, but obviously you're not going to have all that compression and everything at a college level. Some do. Some college level radio stations are better than the bigger commercial radio stations in some markets, but mine wasn't. So when I got to Hot 105 in Miami, boom, that's when it hit. Like, whoa, that's me? It didn't even sound like me. Yeah, so that's when it hit. And then that's when I just went full force. I was like, I love this. Let's go. Yeah.
Do we all? Okay.
Oh, wait. Oh, sorry, that was a little long.
I'll try to keep it short. But I mean, like Roz said, I am from Dallas, Texas. So, you know, not everyone just, I guess, dreams of going to some small town that you've never heard of. I was in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. But I think the minute when I didn't get a job right away, I ended up making one of those kind of bold, rash decisions, and I moved out. I was waitressing, and I just graduated, and, you know, my lease was up at my apartment, and I was living home, and I'm like, okay, this is not like what I went to school for. And so I made a rash decision and moved out to California, and I was actually there a year. And at that moment, when I kind of redid everything and started really applying again, I knew, I was like, I will do whatever I need to do to get into the TV industry and get my experience. If I have to go to a small market, I'm gonna move to Sioux Falls, South Dakota. And when I moved there, and it wasn't the best, you know, experience. I mean, not that it wasn't the best experience, but, you know, living in a smaller town after coming from Dallas, you know, you have to kind of, you know, and I was in the Midwest, coming from the South is very different, and you learn a lot of things. While it's great, you know, being far from family, you know, you make sacrifices. But I realized at that moment, being there, I was like, I know, like, this is what I want to do. The adrenaline from breaking news and getting everything on air and working with your reporters and your general manager and your news director and everyone. I didn't care where I was. I had to be in the industry. So, and I knew it then.
My name is Carly Free. I am a senior at Loyola University with a major in broadcast journalism, minors in sociology and English. And my question for you is, what is it that we either haven't asked or you want us to know that we haven't asked already? Kind of the typical journalism wrap-up question of what you think needs to be known if we haven't mentioned it. And if you don't really have anything that you haven't mentioned, what is the most important thing that you think that you said?
I will say there's one thing I did forget to say earlier, and is that sometimes, things happen for different people at different times. So just because you graduated like 4 years ago and you still don't have that gig, don't give up, In life, I feel like things happen to different people at different times anyway. So, I mean, career, same thing, So when did that moment strike? It may not strike for you for a long, long time. Whenever you're ready, you'll know.
I'd just like to add, do the work that you want to do. When I was in my early 20s, everyone was like in a race to get to that big market. Some of my friends are in top 5 markets and they're not doing what they want to do, And I think that that's really important because when you, at some point, decide in your life, now I want to make time for other things in my life. Again, I'm not going to get into work-life balance, but the idea of, maybe you do want to get married, maybe you do want to have children, maybe you want to buy a house. So you want to make sure that you are doing something fulfilling at work. For me, it didn't matter what city I lived in. I just wanted to do the work. And I kind of wanted to be confident in my voice as a journalist before I went to the next market. And so, you don't have to race to Chicago because maybe you're not ready for Chicago. And those are things that I think you compete with your friends, especially at this age, like, oh, well, she's starting in market 60 and I'm starting in market 130. It's not about that. It's about what's the work that you want to do, and can you be happy doing it? For 13 years, I've been in small and medium markets, but I really love my job. Out of the fact that I get to be an evening anchor and still get to pick the stories that I want to do, and also get to volunteer to do the breaking news that I want to do, and get to be an ambassador for the city. There are only 3 other main anchors in this city. That's a privilege. And yes, I could have been in another market some other time doing another job, and that still might happen for me, but I just really love the work that I do, and I think that that's important when you guys start looking for your real jobs.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
One thing real quick. I'm sorry. Did you? No, go ahead. No, Victoria, go ahead.
I just would like to say that we're at a tipping point in this business that nobody is really reflecting here, that we should be reflecting. Market's going to change. Internet is changing it. It is the player right now. So really, I don't think there is going to be like these markets. I don't know what this industry is going to hash out to, but in the next 10 years, it's going to hash out some way, somehow. And you're either going to be in that business or you're not. But it's going to change because we're at this crossroads right now. You have the internet, you have broadcasting. We could stream. It's just going to change, and I think you guys got to start thinking in those terms versus I got to go to a small market because, there's people on the web doing makeup tutorials that my daughters watch religiously, making money, and they're doing makeup tutorials. I really think that the mindset's going to have to change. That what we're saying here, it was typical 20 years ago. I'm sure it changed for you. You've seen, it's changing. So we got to embrace the change. It's happening.
When I started, all television was black and white.
Right, exactly.
There was no such thing as a satellite.
You can't keep talking on this thing.
There was no such thing as a digital.
No.
There were 3 stations in the market.
Right.
And talk about change. It keeps changing. I think that's important. It's not going to all of a sudden one day change. It's going to change this week and next month, next year. It's changing. And I think one of the important things is staying on top of it. Correct. And one thing that was not mentioned before, there are industry publications. Through the internet, you're able to keep in touch with what's going on in the business. You should know what's going on generally in the business, not just in the local market. And I was also remembering that someone came in, they were applying for a news job at one of our stations, and I said, can you tell me who the senators are in your state? And they didn't. Applying for a news job, they didn't even know who the senators were.
But you got Google.
So you, yeah, but you should know. I mean, you can Google it on the spot, but
Right.
you really should be keeping current. The ownerships change, formats change, tastes change, technology certainly changes, and you've got to keep current with that, even though you're still in school. Now's the time to do that.
All right, I have a question for all of you. How many of you watch local news? How many of you watch local news? That's pretty good. That's a lot. That's a lot.
On
How do you watch it?
I was going to
Exactly.
say, yeah.
How do you watch it?
How do you watch it?
TV and phone. TV. That's pretty. Yeah. Phone.
Yeah, everything.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm impressed because we might still have a future if you're also watching broadcast TV. Because we keep getting told you're not.
Before you say anything, we thank the panel. We thank John and the hospitality here at the station. But we also should thank Dick Block and Greg Pitts, who really put so much effort. And Dick, I keep saying to him, you are really special. Dick really puts all of this together, and we owe him a tremendous vote of thanks.
The students deserve an applause as well.
Yes.
I think it was a wonderful.
Oh, here. All right. Money time, Dick says. All right. So one of the persons who will have, I guess, the last moment to really pitch and talk about his career and give you a last little bit of takeaway is a big country music fan. In fact, he is so big as a country music fan that he is an on-air personality at Big 95.5. I give you Eric Zachary. And by the way, after Eric talks, we're gonna give away some money.
Oh, and I don't want to say anything. So everyone's like, just shut up.
Get some money.